So UFC Fight Night, Luque versus Anjos is going to be taking place this weekend in the Apex, and to be honest, it is a bit of an Apex card really. There is a couple of big names on the card, obviously the guys in the main event, as well as Swanson, Khalil Rountree's on there as well, as is Terrance McKinney, but aside from that, the card is definitely not the best card of the year, but it should definitely be a fun one. I'm expecting a lot of finishes on this card. I'm not going to be live for this card, in fact I'm actually not going to be watching it live, but what I will be watching live is Dana White's Contender Series. I've already got my predictions up there on my channel right now, and I will be doing a live stream during that Dana White's Contender Series card, so keep your eye out for that. And now let's just get straight into the predictions for the card. You've got Juliana Miller taking on Luana Santos. This is it's a tough fight to predict right off the bat, to be honest. I mean, Juliana Miller, she looked pretty bad in her last fight, and then, you know, she took on Veronica Hardy. Veronica Hardy was coming off that massive long time off. She had lots of injuries. She had lots of sort of situations going on. And Veronica Hardy went out there and looked really, really good against Juliana Miller. And Juliana Miller had absolutely nothing but submission attempts off her back. She didn't have any striking. She didn't really look great at all. And it was not a good performance for Juliana Miller at all. And Luana Santos, you know, she's also a grappler. Juliana Miller and Luana Santos are probably both grapplers for the most part. They're both not that great on the feet, but Luana Santos at least has a really good ability to get the fight down to the ground because she does have a strong judo base. She's pretty young as well, 23 years old. She has fought pretty good opponents as well in the LFA, whereas Juliana Miller, you know, she has kind of been fast-tracked a little bit onto the UFC. She went on to the Ultimate Fighter, she won the Ultimate Fighter, but now that she's in the UFC, she has to now face a lot higher level competition than most fighters who are probably only 4 or 5 fights into their career do take on. But Luana Santos is also pretty inexperienced for MMA. She is 5-1, but she does have experience over good competition outside of the UFC. I think she does come out there, and I do think that she does go out there and beat Juliana Miller. I'm going to go with like a late submission maybe, but it's just one of those fights, man. It could go either way. Very, very low confidence pick. I do wish all the best for Juliana Miller because she does seem really, really cool, but I'm going to go with Luana Santos to get the win here. And we will move on up the card to Monsterrat Ruiz taking on Jacqueline Amorim. And this is another tough one, man. I know that Jacqueline Amorim's a massive favourite, but she should not be this big of a favourite. She is a world-class grappler. She is absolutely fantastic in jiu-jitsu. And you did kind of see that when she took on Sam Hughes in that fight, and she looked really, really good in the first round. Almost had some finishes, but she just didn't really have the strength or the power to really finish off some of the chokes that she did have in there. But she really did make a good account for herself in the first round. And then after the first round, she completely gassed and had absolutely nothing left. And now she's fighting at least 3 months later. Hopefully she can recognize that the problem in that fight was her cardio. And maybe she can rectify that, because before that, man, she was a beast, you know. She was 6-0, a lot of wins. In fact, all of her wins by first round finish. She has power on the feet, lights out grappling on the ground. And Monsterrat Ruiz, you know, the way that this girl fights for the most part is wrestling. She is a wrestler. I believe she's a national wrestling champion in Mexico, and she does have pretty decent wrestling. It isn't a good stylistic matchup for her because she's not the best striker in the world. Amorim isn't really, but she's got the great power on the feet. And Ruiz, the way that Ruiz is going to win this fight is by taking Amorim down, but we know that Amorim is going to be at least dangerous off her back, at least for one round. I'm going to go with Amorim to win this fight by a first round finish. I think she can finish Ruiz, but if she doesn't win this fight by first round finish, it really could be Monsterrat Ruiz that starts to take over purely just because Amorim has gassed out. It's another one of those fights that's hard to predict, but I'm going to go with Amorim to win by round 1 submission. It seems like the majority of people are picking that as well. And now we can move on to a heavyweight fight. This card, it does get better towards the end, but it's not going to start out super strong. You got Josh Parisian taking on Martin Buday. I've been pretty low on Martin Buday recently. I thought he looked really bad against Jake Collier. He beat Lucas Brzezski, but like, that was not a good decision. And then he took on Chris Barnett. He looked pretty good against Barnett. It was a good stylistic matchup for him. And then they had the little situation where was it behind the head, back of the head, was it not? And he did beat Lorenzo Hood on the Dana White's Contender Series. But Martin Buday, since he got into the UFC, I'm going to be honest, this guy just hasn't really looked that impressive. He's got a lot of wins by knockout, but the way that he does win most of his fights is just by clinching his opponents up against the cage and controlling them for long periods of time, and just winning by cage control, and also some powerful shots that he can land in the in-betweens. And Josh Parisian is a pretty well-rounded fighter. You know, he can strike on the feet, and he can wrestle. And he probably will give Martin Buday a pretty good fight here. But I do believe that Martin Buday can defend takedowns that Josh Parisian goes for, if he even goes for them. And I even think on the feet as well, Martin Buday is pretty good. You know, we saw Josh Parisian get hurt by Dontale Mays. Actually got knocked out by Dontale Mays. We saw him get hurt by Alain Baudot, and Alain Baudot just looked like he had absolutely no idea what he was doing in that fight, and he was able to knock down Josh Parisian. I think there's just so many red flags for Josh Parisian. There's red flags for Martin Buday as well. He just has not looked good since he's got into the UFC, but he does have a path to victory to win this fight by decision by clinching up against Josh Parisian, and maybe he gets a KO. I mean, who knows at this point, but I think that Buday is going to win a sloppy decision. It's not going to be very fun. Hopefully something happens. Hopefully we get a finish either way, but I'm going to go with Martin Buday to win by boring decision. And now we've got a very, very interesting fight. You've got Francis Marshall taking on Isaac Dulgarian. And I'm actually on the Isaac Dulgarian side. But the problem with Isaac Dulgarian, and the reason why I don't pick a lot of fighters like him, and this isn't a disrespect to Isaac Dulgarian, in fact, it's probably a good thing, but it's just the lack of experience, man. Especially the lack of experience against good levels of competition. I don't really like picking guys that haven't fought good competition and haven't fought too much before they got into the UFC. If you look at Isaac Dulgarian, he's won every single fight that he's had in less than 3 minutes. But what this guy does well is insanely great wrestling. He's a really, really good wrestler, but he's managed to go out there and dominate competition that is pretty low level. Yes, he beat TJ Britton, but TJ Britton, I believe, is like 39 years old and was 7-2 at the time. He got the Nchukwi boys contract, but it seems like the Nchukwi boys aren't gonna be putting, like, advertising him and helping him out. I don't know what's going on with the Nchukwi boys and the situation, but Isaac Dulgarian is meant to be the Nchukwi boys fighter. He's taking on Francis Marshall. Now, Francis Marshall is a guy who I was very low on. I actually did pick him to win on Dana White's Contender Series, and not many people did. And then I picked him to lose against Marcelo Rojo, and he proved me wrong there. And then I picked him to beat William Gomez, and I don't think he looked that great against William Gomez. He missed almost every strike he threw on the feet. I think he got a little bit too confident when he beat Marcelo Rojo, and he thought, man, my striking's really good. He made me feel like he was making rapid improvements in his game, and he probably is. But I do believe, just stylistically, this isn't the best matchup for him. Now, Francis Marshall is a wrestler and is grappler for the most part. That is how he wins a lot of his fights. Recently, he has been striking a lot in the UFC. But I'm going to go with Isaac Dulgarian. I'm just worried that the cardio isn't going to hold up if this fight leaves the first round. Can Dulgarian go 2-3 hard rounds with his wrestling heavy style that he probably is going to have to implement to beat Francis Marshall here? I'm going to hope that it is. Isaac Dulgarian is a fantastic wrestler. I think this could be a big coming out party for him, coming in as the underdog. I think he can take down Francis Marshall. I think Marshall might even invite some wrestling and grappling exchanges. I'm going to go with Dulgarian to win this matchup. Not by first round KO like he's kind of won every single other fight, but probably by late finish or by decision potentially as well with his style. I would be very, very impressed if he was able to get Marshall out of there early on in the fight like he has done his entire career. And now we've got Terrance McKinney taking on Mike Breeden. Terrance McKinney did take this fight on very short notice, and I really like it. I'm seeing people say that they don't like this fight for McKinney just because it is on short notice. I think this is great. This is a fight which McKinney can really get back on the train, I guess, or get that momentum back that he did have at one point. He's looked pretty bad recently. I'm just gonna say it how it is. You know, Ismael Bonferb kind of exposed his pretty bad striking defense, his pretty bad sort of striking like technique, I guess you could say. Like, I mean, McKinney was throwing and like being off balance in that fight. I can't really explain it too well, but if you do watch the fight, you'll completely understand what I mean. And I actually picked Bonferm in that matchup. Not many people did, and then people got surprised that the national boxing champion of Brazil outboxed Terrance McKinney. I mean, people just didn't do their research for that fight at all. And then I picked him to lose against Nazim Sadikov. He looked pretty good in that fight. He actually initiated a lot of wrestling in that fight, which I do actually like for the future of McKinney. But the problem was with Terrance McKinney is he's got a bad chin. He's got bad cardio, he's got bad striking defense, but he's got a lot of power, and he does have a lot to work on because he does have a good wrestling base, and he does have a lot of power that he can land. And I do believe he can land on Mike Breeden, but the problem is to come in on short notice. What is his cardio like? You know, we know that Terrance McKinney spends more time on Twitter than he does in the gym, so like, how's he going to look? Is he making rapid improvements? Mike Breeden, you know, Mike Breeden's not spending all of his hours on Twitter. He's probably in the gym. He's probably doing other things. And I do believe, though, that Mike Breeden is not going to be able to beat Terrance McKinney. I think McKinney can win this fight early. Then he can knock out Mike Breeden. If McKinney does gas out, Breeden is going to knock him out though. Breeden is a guy that coming on short notice took on Alexander Hernandez. Didn't have a very good performance against Hernandez. Took on Natan Levy. Didn't have the best performance against Natan Levy either. But I do believe if the fight gets extended second or third round, you could see Mike Breeden landing on that chin of Terrance McKinney and knocking him out. But I'm going to go with Terrance McKinney by round 1 finish in this matchup. I wouldn't even be that surprised if McKinney gets a takedown or two before inevitably finding that early finish. But if the fight gets extended, Mike Breeden really could be a good underdog in this matchup. And now we move on to Marcus McGhee versus JP Buys. Marcus McGhee should win this fight, and he should win this fight by KO. This is a really bad matchup for JP Buys. I thought that JP Buys was going to be waiting for like a good matchup. Like maybe he was going to wait for someone on Dana White's Contender Series to get signed that he didn't think was very good, and he would test his skills against them. Or he was going to fight someone that was like 0-2 in the UFC, 0-3 in the UFC like he is. But no, he's former flyweight taking on Marcus McGhee, who is massive for 135 pounds. Marcus McGhee is huge for this weight class, and not only that, he's got good takedown defense, and he's a really good striker with power on the feet. And JP Buys, man, he struggled on the feet in his fights, you know. He got KO'd by Bruno Silva on the feet. He did lose to Montel Jackson, but he got knocked down and just beaten up for the whole fight, and he took that on short notice. And then he got knocked out by Cody Durden. JP Buys is a wrestler, but he's not going to be able to wrestle against Marcus McGhee. He's not going to be able to outstrike Marcus McGhee. Marcus McGhee is probably going to KO him. And within the first 2 rounds, honestly, Marcus McGhee is a good fighter. He's very patient, and he doesn't really force anything. I think that Marcus McGhee goes out there and knocks out JP Buys within 2 rounds. This is just a bad matchup for JP Buys. I thought JP Buys was taking all that time off. You know, he still got the UFC contract to fight someone that would be a good matchup for him. Fight someone that he thought that he could beat. This is not an opponent that JP Buys can beat. I am very confident Marcus McGhee gets it done. I think Marcus McGhee gets the win by knockout in this matchup. And now we've got Josh Fremd taking on Jamie Pickett. Josh Fremd's a minus 300 favorite. I like Josh Fremd to win the fight, but I don't really see where the odds are. You know, Josh Fremd, you know, coming into his last fight against Cedric Dumas, was probably looking at potentially losing his UFC contract. You know, he was 0-2. He did take the fight against Anthony Hernandez on short notice, but then he lost to Trayshawn Gore, and that isn't the best look in the world, really. But then he did go out there and beat Cedric Dumas. There is a little bit of a rumor going around about that fight because people are talking about Dumas, you know, betting on himself and then losing so he could go train full time. But hey, I mean, these are just rumors. I'm just going to say that Josh Fremd beat Cedric Dumas. That win has aged well. It has aged well. But in this matchup, I'm seeing a lot of people saying that Josh Fremd's going to go out there and out-wrestle Jamie Pickett, do this and that. I think that Josh Fremd is probably going to strike with Jamie Pickett. A lot of his wins have come from him being on the feet and getting KOs. He's got 4 wins by KOs. He's got 4 wins by submission. He does look to wrestle a lot in his fights, but he has had most of his success against good competition by knockout in the very first round. Now, this is a while ago, and yes, he has wrestled more recently, but in 2020 and 2021, this man went on a crazy run against good fighters by knocking them out on the feet, and I think that Josh Fremd can go out there and knock out Jamie Pickett. Now, one of my favorite fighters that nobody cares about is Dennis Tulin. Dennis Tulin was able to go out there and knock out Jamie Pickett, and I think that Josh Fremd could go out there and do the same thing. I'm going to go Josh Fremd by KO in this matchup. It is interesting because he isn't going to have the size advantage, quote unquote, because Jamie Pickett is 6'2", Fremd is 6'4", but Pickett's got the reach advantage. Pickett is a striker for the most part. He kind of can do everything. He is a pretty good fighter for middleweight, and the reason why is because he just fights anybody. He's not scared of anyone. You know, he probably was meant to beat Dennis Tulin. I picked Dennis Tulin to win that fight, but against Bo Nickel, you know, he wasn't scared to take on Bo Nickel. He's just taking on guys, just taking on everybody, you know, so I'm going to go Josh Fremd. Going to go Josh Fremd by KO. Yes, he's won by submission most recently, but give me Fremd to win by KO on the feet. So that's a little bit of a different take, I guess. But now we've got Tafon and Nchukwi taking on AJ Dobson. I've got AJ Dobson in this matchup, and I am a little bit surprised that he is the underdog. I think maybe the reason why he's the underdog is just that Tafon and Nchukwi looked so good against Azamat Murzakanov on the feet about a year ago. But AJ Dobson's not that bad. Like, AJ Dobson's pretty good. He kind of does a bit of everything. He wrestles and he strikes. And I think that AJ Dobson he's just kind of got a little bit unlucky with this matchups. He took on Jacob Malkoun, and in hindsight, Jacob Malkoun's a really, really good fighter, and then he took on Armen Petrosian, and that was just a pretty bad matchup for him, because Armen Petrosian is a very, very technical striker. I think that this is a very winnable fight for AJ Dobson. Tafon Nchukwi, former light heavyweight. I think even at one point, he was rumored to fight at heavyweight because he was booked against Jamal Pogues. I think that fight was booked at 205. Jamal Pogues isn't making 205 pounds anytime soon, but you know, yes, he did get KO'd by Carlos Ulberg recently, but Carlos Ulberg is a pretty good fighter, and he is going to be rising up the ranks soon. This could be a loser goes home situation, potentially, or maybe if it's not, it's probably a loser takes on a Dana White's Contender Series guy that's up and coming. Maybe the winner of Lucas Fernando versus Cesar Almeida will take on the loser of this fight, but who really knows? I am going with AJ Dobson, though. I think AJ Dobson on the feet, you know, he can stay safe against Tafon Nchukwi. I think he can kind of avoid the big shots. And I think he can wrestle if he needs to as well. I'm going to go with AJ Dobson to win this matchup. It's a pretty close fight, though. I mean, Nchukwi is the favorite by the odds, but the underdog on Tapology, quote unquote. So it's just one of those fights. It's going to be interesting, but I am going to go with AJ Dobson to win this matchup. And now you've got Polyana Viana taking on Iasmin Lucindo. Iasmin Lucindo is a good fighter. She looks really good in a loss against against Iasmin Jauregui. Now that loss hasn't aged poorly. Yes, I know that Iasmin Jauregui just went out there and lost to Denise Gomes by KO in like 30 seconds, but Jauregui's still a good fighter. Jauregui still has a very good skill set and did still look good in that fight and the fight following that. She went out there, looked really good against Brogan Walker. I was a little bit disappointed that she couldn't get the finish over Brogan Walker because I did just genuinely believe that she was levels above. And this is a big step up in competition for Iasmin Lucindo. Now, Iasmin Lucindo is very young. She's only 21 years old. She's not 22 years old yet, and she is going to make improvements. On the feet, she is quite sloppy. Now, yes, she did look good against Iasmin Jauregui, but it kind of was mainly just due to, I think Iasmin Jauregui just wasn't really expecting Iasmin Lucindo to go out there and brawl with her, because if you do look at the tape, I don't even look at the tape, you do look at the fights, Iasmin Lucindo wasn't really fighting the best levels of competition at all. A lot of these fights were pretty hard to find as well, but now Polyana Viana is going to be a big step up in competition from Brogan Walker, though, because Polyana Viana went out there and knocked out Jinyu Frey and looks really, really slick on the feet. She made that rig early, and she just landed a really nice combination that knocked out Jinyu Frey. Now, Jinyu Frey hasn't really gone on to have the best career recently. She's been on a bit of a losing streak, but it's still a good win, and Jinyu Frey's a good wrestler. Now it's a pretty good stylistic matchup for Jinyu Frey to win, potentially. She lost to Tabitha Ricci. Tabitha Ricci kind of controlled her on the ground. It wasn't that good. But I'm going to go with Iasmin Lucindo here. Iasmin Lucindo, as I said, though, she is very sloppy on the feet. All she really throws is hooks. Her chin is up in the air. Maybe Polyana Viana can make the read and expose that. I'm going to go with Lucindo because she can wrestle and she can grapple. Yes, Viana can grapple as well. I'm just going to go with Iasmin Lucindo. I think she can mix up the striking with the grappling. So give me Iasmin Lucindo to win this matchup here. Most people go on Viana, which is interesting, but I am on the Lucindo side. Very low confidence again, but I think that Lucindo can get it done here in this matchup. And now we move on to a fight I am pretty confident in. I am pretty confident that Khalil Rountree can beat Chris Daukaus. Chris Daukaus moving down to 205 pounds. I think for his career, it's a smart idea. I do think it's a good idea. He always was a little bit small for heavyweight. But the problem is he's moving down to 205 pounds against a ranked guy. I thought if he's going to move down to 205 pounds, he would take on like a maybe, honestly, this sounds like a massive step down in competition, but like an Ihor Potieria or something like that. Not Khalil Rountree, because Chris Daukaus is on a 3-fight losing streak, all by knockout to Josina Rosenstrike, to Krotos Blades, and to Derek Lewis. Yes, he did beat Shamil Abdurakhimov, which is a pretty good win. It didn't age well, but at the time it wasn't that bad of a win, really. And Alexei Olenek, once again, has aged terribly, but at the time wasn't that bad of a win. But coming down 205 pounds and taking on Khalil Rountree, Chris Daukaus is going to be slower for this weight class, and he's just not going to be as fast, as quick, or as athletic as Khalil Rountree. I think that Khalil Rountree is going to knock him out. I don't mind. I actually do like the idea of Chris Daukaus moving down to 205 pounds. But the problem is, the difference in technique and speed at 205 to 265 is pretty significant. And I just think that Chris Daukaus is going to struggle with that against a guy like Khalil Rountree. It'll be interesting to see how Daukaus looks on the scales, because I saw in an interview that he's even talking about fighting at 185 pounds, which could be a move as well. But he's getting pretty old now, so maybe 205 would be his best bet. But I think Rountree's going to knock him out on the feet. Rountree's a striker. Daukaus does have that black belt in BJJ, but for the most part, he likes to strike. I think Rountree is going to obviously strike with Daukaus, and I think it's going to knock him out. So give me Rountree by KO in this matchup. I don't mind the move to 205 pounds. I just don't like the opponent that they've selected to make the move down to 205 pounds. I genuinely thought that when Daukaus was talking about a move to 205, he was talking about fighting the low guys at 205. Like, as I said, Ihor Potieria, that would be a big step down in competition, but that's what I was thinking of, not Khalil Rountree. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Khalil Rountree to win by KO in this matchup. Now we've got Cub Swanson taking on Hakeem Dawodu. Cub Swanson tried 135 pounds, decided that he didn't like it, now he's back at 145. I mean, Cub Swanson should have consulted me, because I would have told him that 135 pounds was a bad idea at this point in his career, but that's okay. Cub Swanson still is a legend in the game. He's been in the UFC for like 11 years, which is crazy. He's had a pretty up and down career. He's a Hall of Famer. He's been in the Hall of Fame for his fight with, was it? I forgot his name, but the Doo Ho Choi. With Doo Ho Choi, he's got that Hall of Fame fight, which is an absolutely fantastic fight. But in this matchup, though, he is getting pretty slow, and he's taking on Hakeem Dawodu, who at this point in Hakeem's career is going to be the faster fighter. He is a pure striker. He doesn't go for takedowns. Cub Swanson does go for takedowns on occasion, but for the most part, he's going to be pretty happy to strike. And I think that Hakeem Dawodu at this point is just going to be faster. I think he's going to be quicker. I don't know like if he's going to be the tougher fighter, because Cub Swanson still is a tough dude. But Hakeem Dawodu, I think he's going to be too fast for Cub Swanson at this point in his career. Cub Swanson was looking good when he was fighting guys around the level of his experience, around his age. But when he go on to take on these young up-and-coming guys, just doesn't quite go as well for him, you know. Like, Shane Burgos was young and up and coming at the time. Split decision lost, though. But then he did take on Daniel Pineda, an older guy, and he beat him. Giga Chikadze, young up-and-coming guy, lost to him. Darren Elkins, an older guy, he beat him. Then Jonathan Martinez, young up-and-coming guy. I don't really like Cub Swanson fighting these guys at this point in his career. I think at this point in his career, he should be fighting older guys, or just, you know, maybe just better matchups for him. Now, I'm not saying that Cub Swanson can't win this fight, because Cub Swanson absolutely could win this fight. He definitely could match it up, mix it up. But Hakeem Dawodu, he is a very one-dimensional fighter. He is a striker. He doesn't go for takedowns at all, but he's got great takedown defense. On the feet, he's a good striker. I think to beat Hakeem Dawodu, you either have to be such a good wrestler that you can take him down, or you have to be a better striker in a striking matchup with Hakeem. And I just don't think that Cub Swanson can take him down. And I don't see Cub Swanson at this point in his career being the better striker in the matchup. So I'm going to go with Hakeem Dawodu. I'm going to go Dawodu to win by decision. I don't think he does knock out Swanson. Swanson's a tough guy, especially at 145. He does have that toughness about him. Yes, he got KO'd by Giga Chikadze, but Giga Chikadze is a good fighter. I'm going to go Dawodu to win by decision in this matchup. And now we move on to the main event. Vicente Luque taking on Rafael dos Anjos. I'm picking Rafael dos Anjos here, and honestly, I'm going to be honest as well. Another thing that I'm going to mention, even without the brain injury sort of news that we heard, I was still on the Rafael dos Anjos side. But that brain injury news that we've heard recently from Vicente Luque has got me more on the RDA side. I think that stylistically, it's a good matchup. I really thought, like everybody, that Vicente Luque was going to go out there and just beat the crap out of Belal Muhammad. And Vicente Luque didn't deal with the takedown pressure of Belal Muhammad well, really at all. He did have some success towards the end of the fight, where he really let his hands go, but he never let his hands go against Belal. Yes, it was a rematch, he knocked him out previously, but in this fight, he didn't let his hands go at all, and Belal was pressuring him, taking him down, and Luque didn't really deal too well with it. And I think that Rafael dos Anjos can look at the Belal Muhammad fight and actually fight a similar sort of fight, because Rafael dos Anjos is a grappler for the most part. He is going to want to wrestle with Vicente Luque, and he's going to want to grapple Vicente Luque in this fight. And I think he can do that. So I'm going to go for Rafael dos Anjos to win here. The brain injury of Vicente Luque is so scary as well, but I do love Vicente Luque. I mean, everybody loves Vicente Luque. This guy's a fun fighter, 31 years old. He's still got a lot left in the tank, hopefully, with that brain injury. I'm going to keep bringing it up because it does concern me. It doesn't just concern me for this fight in my pick. It just concerns me with Luque, like with his life, you know, with his career. You know, MMA's his career. This is how he makes his money. And, you know, if he's got that brain injury, then maybe he can't fight. I don't know, man. I feel really bad for him. I feel bad for Luque. I understand it's a really, really big deal. I understand he's a really, really tough dude as well, but he took a lot of damage against Chef Neil. He didn't take any damage against Bilal because Bilal's not finishing anybody aside from Sean Brady. But, you know, like Vicente Luque was on that big streak, you know, when he's getting those submissions by Dash choke. Before that, he was just having absolutely banger fun fights. Everyone was like, this guy is so fun. And he is. He is fun, man. But I think RDA does go out there, out wrestle and out grapple and puts the pressure on Luque. But I am just concerned. I do want to voice my concern about Luque. I've heard like bad things about those brain injuries that he's got. I can't remember the exact name of it, but I know it's a really, really bad thing, and it's a surprise I've heard as well that the doctor even cleared him to fight. I'm very concerned for Luque. Not in the fight, I'm just concerned for him in life. I hope Luque's doing well. I'm going to go with RDA in this matchup, and I think that he does win by decision or submission. As I said though, I was still on the RDA side anyway. The news does scare me a lot. Not just for the fight, but for everything, you know, for his life outside of the MMA as well. But with all that being said, these are my picks. As I did say at the start, I'm not going to be watching this card live. I've actually got something on where I will be away from home for the day. So I will be missing missing the card. I will watch the replay, obviously. But I will be live for Dana White's Contender Series, so tune into that. Watch my Dana White's Contender Series predictions as well, if you want to. And with that being said, I'll see you guys in the next one. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it.